Howdy folks, Dave of Chaos Crafting here. Today I'm going to step away from my D&D campaign crafting and I'm going to delve into my model pile of shame. This is the Tactical Pog Glaug. Yeah, it's a soft G, not a hard G. It's from the 80s anime Macross, Super Dimensional Fortress, something like that. This is a 1/100 scale model. It's going to stand about 8 inches or so tall. You can get it from eBay for 50 or 60 bucks, or like 10 from Hobby Link Japan, but you gotta pay for shipping and that ain't cheap. Well, let's get some coffee and look at some sprues. And if you're a Battletech fan, this is gonna look very familiar. This was the Marauder from the old 1980s tabletop war game. Yep, it's confirmed. I can't read Japanese. So the sprues are molded in dark gray and white. That minimizes the need for painting. However, I'm going to prime the entire model, paint and weather. Let me get this open. The detail looks crisp for an older model. So let's go ahead and jump into assembly of the legs. Not being able to read the directions, you just have to go by the numbers. Since this model is fairly articulated, legs, arms, gun mount, you have to be careful about what you're gluing together. I'll point out some mistakes I made. When gluing the hips, do not glue the leg mounts. They should move freely, if not a little tightly, in the hip housing. Step 2 is super easy. Oh, and I'm using Tamiya Extra Thin. I don't know where this has been all my life. It's a great glue. Step 3, trip me up. This thing right here. I don't know what it's called, but don't glue it. It's got a tab that fits into the leg to allow for greater movement. I glued it, so I had to trim the tab off, and I hope that doesn't cause problems later. The rest of the leg assembly is fairly straightforward. Unfortunately, that's when I noticed a minor drawback to this model. The seams in this model are egregiously large. In Bandai's defense, this is a 30-year-old model. The tooling has not been updated. It's been reboxed, but it's the exact same thing I put together as a kid. I could use some plastic putty, trace all of the seams, let it dry and sand it down. But that would be many hours added to this project. I think I'm going to be okay with it as is. Another item to note, I'm not attaching the feet at this point. I will paint them and attach them later. It's interesting that the feet themselves are hollow. There's no tread on the bottom. I may be able to use this hollow void to put in some ballast if there's issues with balance once the model is assembled. The arms are also super simple. Just don't put any glue in the hinge areas. You'll see what's supposed to move. The one thing I'm not showing is the amount of sanding I'm doing on the seams to minimize their impact. I found a nice set of adhesive sandpapers with grit ranging from 400 to 1200. I wasn't sure if these guns were supposed to rotate at the wrist. It was a little snug, so I made the decision to just glue them in place. I finished off the particle projection cannons and moved on to the recoilless rifle that is mounted on top, and the little jet things that are also mounted on top. I'm pleased with how easy this kit has gone together. I would definitely say a 10-year-old with maybe a little help with the directions would have no problem with this at all. Step 6 is a major assembly point. This is where we assemble the recoilless rifle, the hips, and the two halves of the hull together, along with the sockets that the arms get put into. Here's why I like the extra thin glue. You could run a thin bead across a seam and it will instantly flow into the seam without leaving a large bead of glue on top that you have to sand off. I'm going to pause here and let this model dry completely. I want to make sure that the seam lines get sanded down. I may even use some putty to fill anything that's a little rough. It's important. This is a central focal point of the model. Assembly is almost done. Just need to add a lot of the details to the hull, arms and legs, and we're ready for paint. If you'd like to see more content from Chaos Crafting, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. With winter descending upon the Grumpy Dad household, I'll be spending a lot more time in my spacious crafting lair. And you're going to want to be notified when I put out a new video. So click that little notification bell. So I kind of changed my mind about the feet. I have gone ahead and glued them to the bottom of the legs. And per the directions, we're on our final step. This is where you can assemble, without glue, the arms and the legs all to the hull. This small antenna, I'm not going to glue on. Really, no, I'm not going to glue it on. Not until after I'm done painting. Even without paint, this model looks almost done. Just needs decals. Now I'm going to take this out into my almost freezing garage and give it a base coat of gray primer. I'm going to make sure to tape off the pegs for the arms and the hips so they don't get any paint on them. Yeah, I use Citadel primer. I don't like its price, and it's really stinky, but I can't argue with the results. Just follow the directions on the can, and you'll be fine. I did, however, bring it inside to cure. I didn't leave it out in the cold. I brought it into the warm house. Beer. Alrighty, time to review some of these reference pictures. Break out the airbrush. I will warn you, I am no airbrush master, so we'll see how this goes. I have covered my workspace in some brown craft paper. I'm wearing a light respirator so as not to breathe any of the particulates from the airbrush. And I'm using a base Vallejo airbrush color. This is black. My objective here is to apply a light shadow on the underside of the model. If I had a desktop spray booth, I probably wouldn't need a respirator. If you don't have a spray booth and you don't have a respirator, please use something like a KN95 face mask. It'll cut down on the particulates you breathe. And honestly, lung health is really, really important. Now I'm going to switch to white after I've cleaned my airbrush. Always do that between colors. I'm going to block out the majority of the white elements of the model, trying to save the darker shadows that I sprayed initially. I'm not worried about a little bit of overspray. I'll be touching everything up with a paintbrush as I get to the details. Next, we'll move on to the red for the feet, using a little bit of airbrush thinner to thin out my red acrylic paint. I will end up doing 2 coats to get a good, solid red. This red is a little translucent. I got the airbrush too close to the model, and the paint started to pool a little bit and cause ripples. So I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to mask it and get it repainted. I will use some painter's tape and a compass with a pen to create a nice circle for this mask. Now I can apply a coat of white here without worrying about overspray or ripples. Using the reference pictures on the directions, I started to hand brush the various fiddly bits. I made sure to touch up any overspray, and at this point, I'm using a wet palette, in case I need to blend any colors to match. Here we have what I consider a complete model. I could slap some decals on this and call it a day. But no, we're not going to stop here. We're going to take this crisp, clean paint job and dirty it up to make this model look like a battle-hardened Zentradi war machine. I'm going to use some nil-nil oil from Citadel Color. Using a nice sized brush, I'm going to slather this wash all over the cracks and crevices. Let it run and drip. I'm not going to lie. Doing this is a complete terror. Visually, it goes against everything you think is correct when it comes to painting a model. Just trust the process and have the Step 2 materials close at hand. Step 2 of this process is a cleanup with some airbrush thinner and Q-tips. An important thing to note, I did not let this thoroughly dry. It's still a little tacky. Using a Q-tip damp with airbrush thinner, go ahead and start gently wiping the surface areas of the model. Don't scrub the crevices too much. You want that detail to remain. This will really make the panel lines pop. As I'm doing this, I'm noticing that my time is quickly running out, and this video is getting a little long. I still need to finish off the weathering, put on the decals, and give it a nice protective varnish coat. So let me leave you with a spinning view of the battle pod. Is it perfect? No. Is it sitting in my pile of shame? Oh hell no. I'm very happy with how this model came together. If it was a 40K vehicle, I would be proud to field this on a table. If you've liked this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'll get the pictures of this all finished up on my Instagram account sometime in the next week. And until next time, peace!